Excellency Ambassador 𝗘𝘁𝗵𝗶, Ambassador of Ethiopia to the United Kingdom, esteemed coffee shop owners, exporters, roasters, buyers, researchers, historians and filmmakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to you all. Welcome to the Ethiopian Embassy, and I dare to say the home of coffee in the UK. I believe there is no right place to have coffee and speak about coffee than the Ethiopian Embassy. For many around the world, coffee might be just a drink. That's something that they take to be more awake or active. But for Ethiopians, coffee is culture, coffee is community, coffee is also a therapy session. Coffee is how we build societies together, how you meet your neighbors, how you make friends. To say the least, coffee is everything in our culture. So we're very excited and proud to have introduced these magnificent and beautiful beings to the world. Coffee is also a passion for many Ethiopians. Before I give you the agenda again, I would like to give a huge thanks to our sponsors, which are 𝗓𝗲𝗵𝗶 with South Spring Water directly from Ethiopia, which I see some of you had the pleasure of testing. Air Services Ltd, Brighton PLC, Ethiopian Airlines, and also a very special thank you to Chef Alex. We appreciate you very much. Another special thanks to Kew Gardens for lending us 2 beautiful coffee plants that you see here and one outside. We appreciate it. We believe it makes us whole from the plant to the drink itself. So the whole journey that you're going to experience today. With that, I would like to invite His Excellency Ambassador Brook to the floor for his opening remarks. Your Excellency.
It's an honor to welcome you to this special occasion, celebrating one of Ethiopia's great gifts to the world, coffee. What we are celebrating here is more than just a beverage. It's a symbol of heritage, a source of livelihood, a vessel of culture, and a bridge of human connection. And while we honor the legacy and future of Ethiopian coffee, I would also like to take this opportunity to share with you a glimpse of the remarkable country behind this bean. Ethiopia is a land of extraordinary stories and living traditions. From the ancient rock-hewn churches of Lalibela and obelisk of Aksum to the walled city of Harar and the breathtaking Simien Mountains, Ethiopia offers travelers a journey into the very origin of civilization. With 12 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, Ethiopia is a country where the past is not preserved, it is lived every day. We are also working hard to transform tourism into a platform for sustainability, cultural exchange, and inclusive growth. With increased investment in ecotourism, infrastructure, and community-based travel, Ethiopia is opening new opportunities for visitors to experience our heritage, landscapes, and most importantly, our people. Ethiopia is not only the birthplace of humanity, but also the birthplace of coffee, a gift we have shared with the world. Grown in the misty highlands and nurtured by fertile volcanic soil, Ethiopian coffee is celebrated globally for its rich aroma, complex flavors, and unmatched quality. But beyond its exquisite taste lies a deeply rooted cultural tradition, the Ethiopian coffee ceremony. This time, honored ritual is a moment of pause, reflection, and connection, where coffee is lovingly prepared over open flame, freshly roasted, ground, and brewed with care. To attend such a ceremony is to witness artistry in motion, an invitation to slow down and savor not only the drink but also the company. In Ethiopia, coffee is far more than a beverage. It is a way of life. The ceremony serves as a cornerstone of community life, bringing together friends, family, and neighbors to exchange stories, share laughter, and discuss matters both personal and public. For visitors, this is a unique and heartfelt way to meet everyday Ethiopians from all walks of life, to listen and to be listened to, and to become part of the social fabric, even if only for a moment. And so, even time you serve a cup of coffee, whether in London, New York, Tokyo or beyond, you will carry with you the memory of Ethiopia's highlands and the knowledge that your journey contributed to empowering the very hands that brought that coffee to life. Ladies and gentlemen, Ethiopia is ready to be rediscovered, not only through its ancient wonders or scenic beauty, but through every warmth of coffee shared around the world. I'm sure with the program we have today for you about the story and culture behind Ethiopian coffee, you will learn much about it. Finally, we invite you to be ambassadors of this remarkable country, champions of our farmers and partners in our journey towards a brighter, more connected future.
To head to our next program, which will be a trailer of a documentary about coffee made by an Ethiopian origin filmmaker. To give you a little bit about his bio, Mr. 𝗘𝘁𝗵𝗶 has made a name for himself as a coffee merchant and documentary filmmaker in London. For the past 14 years, he has brought the finest Ethiopian coffee beans to the UK, but his passion for the history and culture of coffee led him to take on the challenge of producing documentaries about coffee.
I think Ethiopian Embassy in London for the last few months to promote coffee, the coffee culture, the production impact, the history, and it's remarkable. I think the embassy should be credited for this program. My name is 𝗘𝘁𝗵𝗶. I was not ready actually today for the film, but my main passion for the last few months was promoting Ethiopian coffee tour. But when I have been told by somebody I have to speak about the film, which is we have done it for the last 3 years, I must speak about the film. Yeah. 𝗧𝗸𝗲 maybe I would leave the definition or the explanation by the expert Solomon. Will tell you more about later on. It is Amharic word means sworn by birds. So the birds contribute in early coffee spread. So maybe it's better to leave it for expert to explain later on. 𝗧𝗸𝗲, it's been my idea a few years ago when I was taking a coffee tourist to the forest coffee of Ethiopia, which is Kaffa. And I get the idea of the origin, the culture, the production, and the history. The impact of climate change on a decline of the bees and the untold story of the most consumed agriculture commodity after tea. There's less documentary film it's made about coffee. So I thought I would come up the idea, and I met Sylvia, I think the director, she's not here. I would be very happy if she speak about the film. I'm just a coffee passionate person. I'm new to the film, but to make a documentary film, you just need to have observation of the story and the passion of to tell the story that's unknown. And Ethiopian coffee, it's impacted the world communication in terms of trade, and it bring African, Middle East, European history together. I think it's a vital commodity. Maybe Professor Jonathan Morris later he will touch it. But the film is 1 hour long documentary. It tells about the origin. It tells about the production, which impacted the Ethiopian, which it give the Ethiopian economy big advantage in terms of coffee producers in Africa. The production, we talk about the origin, the production, and the culture and the history of the coffee trade, how it expanded from Ethiopia to the rest of the world. So the film is 1 hour long. It is passionate telling about the story of some of the forest coffee farmers, challenging, especially the forest growing region. They have huge impact with the decline of the bees. The bees, honeybees and wild bee contribute for cross-pollination really a lot. The production of coffee in the forest area increased by 40%, which is the hard working of the bees. So to tell the beekeeper story in our film is one of my highlight of the film. So this film short trailer, the film is ready. We are actually nominated finalist in Austrian Film Festival, our first nominee, which is especially the director. She worked really hard, so maybe later if she has an opportunity she can talk about that. So I hope you can enjoy the 3-minute trailer. It would tell a little sense of history, and especially the coffee history is not really been told. So maybe this is the beginning of to tell this incredible commodity who communicated the entire global society. So I hope you enjoy the trailer.
Bula bula. 𝗬𝗀𝗀𝗃𝗀𝗃 bula. 𝗬𝗀𝗀𝗃. Ikeki tikata ina le olada. Bona galigolo na ndin tagilo mabeto damba beta bona gilombo mabeto kubuizo ka ajira badimna.
It's my pleasure to invite Professor Jonathan and Mr. Solomon for their fireside chat.
It's fantastic to be here. It's such a wonderful pleasure to be here in the Ethiopian Embassy. Any person who researches in coffee, Ethiopia is like our dream. Ethiopia is where coffee obviously is created. It's a particular pleasure for me today to be with my friend Solomon, who really has added so much to my understanding of coffee in Ethiopia. But it's also, and I should say straight away, it's a fantastic pleasure to see 𝗬𝗁𝗵𝗏 here, because 𝗬𝗁𝗵𝗏 is the person who brought me and Solomon together, and Anthony's work on producing film and on promoting Ethiopia and its coffee has really been outstanding. So thank you, Anthony. So let's talk a little bit about the origins of coffee and the revisiting of the origins of coffee. And I think...
Thank you, everyone, especially Ambassador Brooke. Thank you for... It's an honor to be here to explain about I'm glad you didn't use it. You all of you said Ethiopia is coffee sapiens. We know sapiens origin. Coffee sapiens and Homo sapiens. I'm glad I'm the first one who used it. Yes, Ethiopia is home of everything, I would say, just proudly say, when Ambassador said, Homo sapiens, 𝗬𝗏𝘁𝗏 from Rudolph, you must have read about Homo sapiens, and coffee sapiens, that I'll get from coffee sapiens instead of origin. That will just clarify everything. And as my best friend, Professor Jonathan said, understanding. I like the word when he used understanding. What do we know about coffee? And written just fragment. And there is some which led me to when I was very young. As Ethiopians, there is a culture which specifically we do know in a rural area. A mom dipped her finger in a coffee cup and put it in her mouth when an infant. That's where we start drinking coffee. Just not all of a sudden. It's history. And that, we call it, in rural area where I come from, I'm from 𝗘𝗏𝗃. And what it hit me about coffee is that man. I met the late 𝗦𝗁𝗴𝗀, he passed away 2 years ago. I went just to make my condolence to him. He is owner of Mother Coffee. Mother Coffee. It is called Buninde. Coffee is originated from the area in 𝗘𝗏𝗃, the village called Bun. That's where Bunchum come from. Bunchum, Abyssinia, came from Vulcan. Now that fragment of history, just pieces are missing in between. As you all know, coffee started in Yemen. Yemen came with 14th century, 15th century. And Abyssinia, when is it? 800, 900. Where is that gap? Then, that when I was young, my mother and my grandmother, they don't drink coffee, but they make coffee 4 times a day. And as a young, I asked her, you don't drink coffee, but you're making coffee. You make us drink coffee. Why? What I was told was, when you grow up, you would know about coffee. Coffee is our bread. That's what she called coffee is our bread. What does that mean, coffee right there? Back in the rural area, in 𝗘𝗏𝗃 specifically, when you go to the farmer, when you provide breakfast, they said, I didn't drink coffee. So they have to have coffee first before breakfast. That is, coffee is our bread, means they have to have that energy. We'll go further. Any question you saw the picture on the top, the first one. Me and them, Professor Jonathan, whenever we meet, we just dig into history, argue, just discuss. And the coffee started, how did it get to Yemen? And you mentioned about coffee Arabica. Still, I'm hesitant to call. It shouldn't be coffee Arabica. Why was it called coffee Arabica was my question when I was young. Can we find out why it's called? Then, luckily enough, we had documentary film with the Dutch people about 28 years ago. Prior to that, in 1988, and I was just about 17, I did ask an older man, I was invited, and he told me, it's a coffee story, just coffee we made. That's where it started. Now, we can start, just kick off, where can we start that link, that fragmented history pieces, and say, if it is coffee meant to be called coffee Arabica, let's stop here, drop everything, just let it be called coffee Arabica. But why did Karl Linnaeus, father of taxonomy, called coffee Arabica? One of the subjects we're going to talk about it.
Our second panelist is Dr. Jodie Kane, Principal Research Fellow at the Overseas Development Institute, ODI. Her expertise lie in international trade policy,
climate resilient value chains, and also how trade regulations such as the EU Deforestation Regulation, EUDR impact developing countries such as Ethiopia and others. So without further ado, please help me invite our panelists.
Ethiopia is the best place in the world to pioneer that kind of idea. It's a double biodiversity hotspot, the Horn of Africa and the Albertine Rift. So it's incredibly important for plant, mammal, bird biodiversity. We all know that. It's also Africa's most important centre of crop diversity. There's a handful of places around the world where many of our crops come from. We've heard about coffee's origin story, but there's at least 30 other species. My own that I research is 𝗬𝗏, which makes 𝗘𝘁𝗵𝗶 for anyone that's been to Ethiopia. There's many, many other species that come from Ethiopia. How do we conserve biodiversity at the same time as conserving agrobiodiversity, whilst also supporting the livelihoods of the people that live in Ethiopia and have to achieve this grand challenge? So I think Ethiopia is the best place, Ethiopians are the best people to find a way to do this, and those solutions will be applicable in many countries around the world.
Thank you, James. And you, Dr. Jody, if you can share how your research on trade regulations and climate-friendly trade applies to countries such as Ethiopia, especially in the context of Ethiopia and coffee.
Thanks very much indeed, 𝗵𝗂𝗵𝗏, and thanks so much, James. It's really a pleasure to be here at the Embassy, Excellency. Thank you so much. So I think I'll just follow on from the point that James just mentioned, that we really do need to think about approaches that value nature differently, the value of biodiversity, the type of kind of ecosystems that we all need. So we know we have a really big problem. We've got the climate emergency, we've got big players rolling back on their commitments, but countries like Ethiopia, are still members of the Paris Agreement, have regulations in place to prevent deforestation, but they're also struggling with new regulations that are quite heavy-handed. To be very frank with you, don't take into account the landscape and just how diverse different types of farming production systems, the coffee production system in Ethiopia is. You've got around 80% that is produced by smallholders. So introducing a compliance system, a traceability system, just given the number of producers, the geographical area is just extremely challenging, and it costs. So who is going to pay for that? Because we know across the value chain, producers, those at the lower rungs, they do tend to bear that burden of adjustment. So all of our research at ODI has been trying to explore these dynamics, and we've used the phrase the green squeeze, just to kind of emphasize that there are risks of costs being passed down the supply chain to producers who may already be producing in quite a sustainable way. I think we've got the coffee plant right in front of us. We know that there's a need for shade, there's a need for forestry, there's all sorts of techniques that are needed, but they're not recognized at the moment. So we need to think really carefully about how we change these dynamics, because the impact on producers that have contributed the least to the problem, this is really something that we should all be very concerned about.
For example, crude oil was discovered in Azerbaijan, and today Azerbaijan is now one of the highest producers of crude oil. Cocoa also, when you look at those commodities. What do you think we can do for Ethiopian coffee, despite the fact we have a lot of story around Ethiopian coffee is the origin? What can we do to ensure Ethiopia is competitive when it comes to coffee? Thank you.
All I would add is that Ethiopia has the genetic diversity, and Ethiopia is quite good at managing and looking after its genetic resources. And whilst I want the whole world to be successful, and I want, I don't wish ill on other countries that grow coffee, the climate's changing. Countries that have very low diversity because they have a handful of cultivars that came a long time ago will suffer. They will need alternative varieties, and that diversity is in Ethiopia. So I hope Ethiopia can negotiate a fair way to share those benefits whilst being appropriately compensated for, conserving coffee in Ethiopia. So it's an idealistic view of how the world should work. But I'm allowed that as I'm just an academic.
The idea of Ethiopian coffee, how can we use it? We are good on producing it, we are good on drinking it, but we are not good on bragging about our coffees. Yeah? So we need such kind of platform for the world to understand different part of the coffee which is grown in different climates. How can we use them or blend them with modern desserts in a twisted way without losing the foundation, without overpowering the taste of the coffee? How can we blend it and get the best out of it? I think that is the most forward way from the panel discussion which I had earlier. How can we get the value added on coffee products in order to maximizing the farmers' income, the country's economy, and the import and exporters' revenue as well. So it is my menu is crafted based on 5 different coffees from different parts of Ethiopia. 𝗘𝘁𝗵𝗶, Limu, I have the Harar one. Each and every one of them have their own unique kind of flavors. So I tried my best to create these desserts. As a chef, I prefer you to judge me based on the product rather than coffee like 𝗘𝘁𝗵𝗶, Sidamo, Harar, Guji, and Limu were chosen for their distinct profiles. The flora, the spiciness, and how it is balanced flavor-wise when we combine it with chocolate, when we combine it with acidity or lime. So I try to work around on that kind of thing. I believe this event is a good opportunity for coffee exporters, coffee suppliers, investors as well to understand how the Ethiopian coffee products can be maximized and used on board in different forms. So my first one is 𝗘𝘁𝗵𝗶 coffee. As you can see, it's just a kind of panna cotta. 𝗘𝘁𝗵𝗶 is known on a bright citrus and delicate floral acidity. So I try to balance that with a panna cotta made from milk and creamy kind of substance. It will be presented the way you can see. You will see it later. The second part is a goji berry, which is known for a juicy berry sweetness with fruity undertones and a creamy finish. So practically, when you taste it, you will see how it is blended or being served as a tiramisu. If there are Italians, forgive me. I took your ideas and blended it with Ethiopians, so it's a win-win. The Harar coffee, you guys have been talking about it earlier, how it is deep chocolatey with hints of red wine and earthly kind of flavors. To compensate that one, I created a kind of chocolate soil. So it will go with it and then will be tasted. The fruit one, this one is just to simply see how can we use it in our house, on a day-to-day basis, without making it complex, like assorted fruits, skewers, using the smooth coffee, caramel and sweetness and honey texture contrast by doing a coffee drizzle, just sprinkling up on it, and then to see how it is combined with different kind of fruits and how the flavor, is it overshadowed, is it how it works, then you will see it when you practically test the product. The last one, but the best one, I can say, is the Sidamo coffee fruit pavlova. This one is known for its a crisp meringue based on with the whipped cream infused with Sidamo coffee, berry notes crowned with fresh strawberry, blueberries, as I said, the Ethiopian coffee, all the acidity, the fruity, earthly natures, how they combine, and practically you will taste it, you will see. I'm more than happy to take your feedback and work with you if there is an opportunity to maximize the Ethiopian coffee in the international stage. So thank you very much again for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
As a film director and co-producer of 𝗬𝗏 Coffee, absolutely, I am very much into coffee and know quite a lot about the coffee, and I'm very happy that Ethiopian Embassy in London is doing this kind of event, because that is very true that this huge heritage and the drink that is consumed all over the world, actually number second after water. Everyone should know that the origin is from Ethiopia and how much Ethiopians are doing into this. And half of the population is in direct or in indirect way connected to Ethiopian coffee industry. So we have to talk about this and be proud about it and brag about it as much as possible. So to summarize, I'm very happy about this event, and I'm very sentimental as well, because I have been in Ethiopia 2 years ago and I just want to go back here immediately. So thank you very much for having me here.
So I'm going to Ethiopia in January with a group led by Antu and Anthony and his guides, and I'm the only one of the group I've encouraged to come with me. So I'm taking lots and lots of pictures, looking forward to seeing Ethiopia, the land of origins, and seeing all the beautiful scenery in the south and where the origins of coffee come from, and I'm looking forward to seeing all the different tribes and all that beauty. So for me, it's something quite exciting. I've travelled to lots of places, and now I'm going to travel to Ethiopia.
My name is Jodie Keane. I'm a Principal Research Fellow at ODI Global London, and I've been looking at the implications of the European deforestation regulation for producers like Ethiopia. So as we know, Ethiopia is the birthplace of coffee. It's been fantastic to come to the embassy today to learn more about the story and the history, and it is really an incredible one and an incredible journey. And it's then quite concerning that given that rich history, that Ethiopia potentially faces some risks of exclusion in key end markets. And we see this arising not because producers in Ethiopia are damaging the environment, it's more related to the ability to cover the costs of compliance. You know, when you've got a production system whereby you've got almost 80% of production undertaken by smallholders, it is just extremely challenging to get the right traceability systems in place to ensure that there is the due diligence and that all of these new market requirements can be satisfied. It requires investment, and so it costs. So the big question that we're trying to answer is who bears those costs? And then, you know, really the big question for us is, you know, how do we turn this into more of a positive agenda whereby we're not just thinking about the burden of adjustment and cost, but we're actually talking about the recognition of Ethiopia's already, you know, systems of production that conserve biodiversity and that are also potentially more sustainable compared to large plantation-based systems. We just don't think that there's enough recognition of that. So the event here today has really been insightful for me to learn more from the kind of agricultural side, thinking about different types of genetic resources, biodiversity. That's been really rich and insightful for me. And I think there's a whole lot that could be done in terms of the marketing of Ethiopian coffee and just telling this rich story so that, you know, demand grows and, you know, a price premium can be achieved in end markets.